All right. We are now live on YouTube. Today is Thursday, July 29th, I believe, at least in this part of the world. And this is our weekly design meeting. Before we get into the agenda, if we're going to follow it today, TBD, I'd like to go around and do some quick introductions. My name is Jen Lampton. I'm joining from Oakland, California. It is unusually cold here today. I don't know where you are, Luke. You're probably close enough that it's not cold, but for some reason it's cold where I am. So I've been drinking hot tea in the middle of summer. It's very exciting. All right, Luke, do you want to introduce yourself next?
Sure. I'm Luke McCormick. I'm in San Ramon, California, which is about 5 or 10 miles from where Jen is, except like another climate altogether. It's 90 degrees here. I just finished an iced coffee. The air conditioning's on. I'm actually super interested in interface issues and such. So I look forward to hijacking the conversation a little bit later on if we drift into different areas. But in the meantime, we'll throw it over to Joseph.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm mostly a backend developer. So I try to help with design by building tools for designers to use rather than actually designing anything. All right.
Okay, well, that's all of us. Tim did say that he would try and join today, but he might be a little bit late. So we'll see if he comes in later. As far as our agenda, we have a couple of long-standing issues for front-end developers. One of them was this concept of promoting recommended feature complete themes. That's issue number 4445 in the backdrop core queue. That one requires a bunch of changes to a bunch of different subsystems, so it hasn't been getting a lot of progress lately. And then another one that we've been talking about long-term is to try and make all themes better by providing a set of standard elements that should be supported. And not only will this help make front-end developers know what they need to support, but it also could be used for guidelines to help us decide what a recommended and feature complete theme would be. And that issue is 319. No, it's not it. We don't have an issue here. Don't have an issue number, but I think the work for that is currently happening in a backdrop contrib project we have called Style Guide. And so if you go to github.com/backdrop-contrib/style guide and check the issue queue there, we're hoping to use the Style Guide as a guide for front-end developers to know what they need to style. Shocker. And then we've also had this long-standing issue to try and make it easier for people to figure out what themes to put on their site. I know Luke and Tim, you've done a bunch of work on a website that will help people preview themes, but we've got a bunch of like more grandiose ideas that are going to be really hard to execute. The people have been talking about for a while too. I don't know where those are documented. I also don't have an issue number for that. It's probably in the backdropcms.org queue, but I'll go see if I can pull it off. So those are things that are all sort of long-standing. They were things that we talked about during the theme initiative and working on that. They are still on our agenda because we would love to get those problems solved. But I don't know that they are what we're currently working on. I know, Luke, you're pretty excited about stuff you were looking at earlier today. So I don't know if you want to hijack now or later.
A little bit. I mean, it's funny, you know. I'm like Drew Barrymore in 51st Dates. Like every time I come in, it's like it's all brand new. It's like, well, let's start from the beginning again. So I mean, it's funny. I'm actually trying to launch a backdrop site that I described a little bit during Backdrop Live for my old band, and like I've got all the content pretty much ready to go. I'm implementing sort of like these sort of design choices, like wrestling with the issues that all this that I've been talking about for years of the site itself is not about any of the designs. It's purely about like the content and the community, and it just has to like not look ugly and for me to get it out there. So all this has been trying to seek like the shortest possible way to get there. And I don't know, like the Drew Barrymore 51st Dates things. I keep coming back to sort of the same issues of where to start. Like what's the minimal possible thing? I've resigned myself at this point to creating a sub theme, but just planning to make like the simplest possible sub theme. Near as I can tell, all I'm going to do is change the spacing and padding on like a handful of elements. Kind of things that I can do. I mean, the way I do them is I pull up dev tools in Chrome and adjust something. I'm like, all right, that's good. Copy it and save it. So I don't know, my dream is to not have to go into like stuff like dev tools. So, I know dev tools because I've been a web developer for a long time and I know how to get to it, but none of our potential audience is going to know how to do that. And so what do we have to do to make it so that people do that? I mean, one option is having the themes, have it covered so you don't have to make any modifications at all. So that just pick it, choose it, you're done. Don't even know what a style sheet is. And I think that's most of WordPress, right? Like I imagine the vast majority of the people that have WordPress blogs have no idea how to edit any CSS at all, I would imagine. You think?
Maybe. I have a friend who has several WordPress websites, and she actually WordPress has an interface where you can actually read the CSS files from your theme and edit them and save them in the UI. And she actually does that all the time, but she might be more of a power user than the average person on the internet. But it is literally a page with a text box, and she edits the CSS file in the text box and then hit save. And that's as sophisticated as it gets, unless you have special plugins to add more stuff to it.
Yeah, but you can see how that allows you to grow into that. You do one thing, and so you open this box and like you make one change, and then once you've opened that box, you're like, oh wait, there's other stuff again. The next time it comes around, you're like, oh, I just added to that box, and eventually you end up with like 100 things in that box, and you look for more sophisticated organization ways to do it. But you're able to get started. You're able to get that one change done, and
actually. It's funny because she has over 100 things in that box, and she hasn't looked for a more sophisticated way. She's just like, oh, that's just how the internet works.
Yeah. Well.
So I don't know. I guess some people would look for that, and some people are just assume that's the way it works. Which it's not a great way for it to work. So yeah.
So we have two modules similar to what you described. We've got the CSS Injector module that lets you put CSS, I think, in the database, and then it renders it as a CSS file. And then there's another one that I just saw in the issue queue here called CSS Editor that does something similar where it gives you a giant text box where you can put your CSS in. So I think we've sort of met those requirements in terms of people who might want to edit CSS, but not have a bunch of additional control over their theme. But I think, Luke, what you're getting at is like not just CSS, but if you wanted to like override a template file or something more complicated, it would be nice if we had like, so baby step 1 could be like, sure, edit CSS, but maybe step 2 could be like, maybe we'll make it easier to edit something that's not CSS.
Maybe no, it's almost like wanting less that, because the things you want to edit in CSS, I mean, there's like multiple levels of CSS. There's very sophisticated CSS that you can get to, where you can get all sorts of like, you know, the specificity of the different objects and like how that all relates. But I mean, tons of things are like word processor level simple. I want this bold. I want the font bigger. I want a border around it. And I mean, Joseph actually implemented things a lot like this in the blocks. What's it called, Joseph?
It's called the configurable block style module.
Yeah, which once you find it, pops up this nice little interface. I mean, it's hidden. You have to select some things that
you have to know to go into a block and change its style for this thing to work. But
to like configurable or something.
Right.
But once you find it, then you've got a thing. It even tells you in pixels. Like it chooses your units for you, and you just type a number, and the spacing changes. So like a handful, and I don't think we need very many. Like layouts carries like the huge load of it, of like, where do things go on the page. So yeah, I think that's like the hard part for people to use. We're able to build a house, but we're just having, it's hard to figure out how to hang the drapes to paint the baby's room. Or I'm going metaphor heavy here, so let me back off from that.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about the module you found, or?
Not really, because I haven't looked at it enough to be able to, like before the call, I did a little screen share of it, but I could just like repeat that, be like, oh, here's this thing. And Sweaver, for those of you on the internet that might want to look at it, seem to have some of these features. The 777 module, SWEAVER, and it had, I think almost had, I don't think it doesn't look like it's supported anymore. It looks like it's abandonware, from what I can tell.
Right. Yeah. So I've been working on something a little similar to that. I don't have much to show at the moment because it's quite complicated. But at Backdrop Live, Luke and Tim and I were talking, and one of the things that was brought up was like an idea of micro themes, like being able to just pick being able to select out the styles for certain things, like just the header or just your blocks or just your footer from multiple themes and combine them the way you wanted. So that's something I've been working on, is essentially a module that lets you create sets of CSS like that in a theme, and then let people pick and choose, basically. I want the footer styles from that theme and the header styles from that theme. But then also a user interface to kind of modify those.
I mean, you can do this sort of within the traditional theming interface, right? Like you can have sub-themes of sub-themes, right?
Right.
So theoretically, you could.
But you can't have multiple parent themes if they are not already in your chain of themes.
Say that again.
You can't have multiple parent themes.
Right, but one theme can have another parent and it can have another parent. And I mean, there's no arbitrary limit to how deep that
Right.
can be, right?
Right, but that's a little convoluted to set up to begin with. Like that's not something that someone who's a first time user of Backdrop is going to know how to do.
Right. No, I mean, it's not practical just now, but I'm just thinking, like, if that's possible, then what if in the interface you could tell one theme to be a sub-theme of another one, like just have it behave as if it included, you know, the parent
Right.
rules or whatever the thing is.
Yeah, I don't. I think that wouldn't be that hard. I think we would run into a problem with the theme system itself doesn't support this. So that was kind of why I was building a module for this. Is what I'm actually going to do is completely bypass the theme settings system entirely, and I would provide my own UI for all of this.
Okay, now what do you mean the theme system doesn't support it? It sounds like it has the wiring to do it. There's just no interface for it. I mean, there's no way to tell it to do that. But
Well,
but
if you would have to change some of the code about how it looks up stuff from the parent themes in order for this to work, because it's hard coded to only have one parent basically internally. But you could change that, like put it in a loop and just say, for each this list of parents, run the code. So I think it would be a fairly simple change, but I don't know if that's a good idea, the way the theme system currently works. So, yeah. I don't know if you have any thoughts about like how you would want this to work from a user interface perspective.
I mean, it's not really use case driven, so it's not. I'm hesitant to say anything about it because it's not good product management. Right? I mean, I'm not sure what the end purpose is. I just am noticing sort of what seem to be capabilities within the technology for things, and I was just kind of curious what possibilities that uncovers.
Right. Like we have pieces all over the place and we just need to connect them together.
And that actually sounds like the solvable problem, but like the new initiative, and I'm trying not to hijack in that direction to like, oh, why don't we do this other incredible, you know, huge amount of work, or
right,
you know, without knowing why.
Right, like the like I have that the configurable block style module that I built, and we could or I think it would be pretty easy to put that in the views style settings and the field style settings to be able to apply that to anything.
That would be great.
Right.
I'm dreaming of that. You can do that?
It was funny. You actually asked me about that, and I had been working on that. Like that thing you asked me about was something I had been building the day prior.
Okay. I mean, didn't we talked about it at Backdrop Live, though, didn't we?
I don't think we did.
I mean, we touched on the idea. We went into
I said it was. I think I said it was possible, but I don't think it existed yet.
Oh.
So yeah.
Okay. So what's the release date on that?
I have no idea.
I'll be your first customer.
Okay. Yikes. I have no idea. At this point, I still have no idea how much work it's going to take to finish this thing.
Okay, are you talking about turning into a Views plugin, or like technically, what is it that you're proposing? That
So,
you're working on?
okay, so essentially there's, my dad and I have been talking about this for a while, but we have style plugins that can go into everything, like field styles, view row styles, block styles, layout region styles, all these things.
Yeah.
And my idea was to be able to basically be able to specify like a small style set. I'm not sure what the rule would be for the, or the name would be for this, like a set of CSS. And you just say, please apply the CSS to this item. And it would figure out what classes it needs to apply to where in order for it to get to work. So you could say, I want this thing to have whatever, like a 2-pixel black border and a 3M rounded corner and like a drop shadow or whatever it is. And just say, please put this on this block and also on my header and also on this field over here. And just have it work.
And would it do that by having class names that it attaches to these different
Yeah.
entities?
Mm-hmm.
And so it just sets
so it would,
the
right. So I would essentially have to build a block style plugin, a view style plugin, a field style plugin, et cetera, et cetera. And then that would pull in your settings from the module, and you could define these styles in like an in-place editor UI. So rather than the way Sweaver works is or the way it appears to work from the 15 minutes I've looked at it, is that you're directly styling a single element on a page, but this would be like defining a set of rules and then applying those to elements as a group.
So someone on Zulip this week was talking about the problem you run into when you change CSS and you don't know what it might have affected, right? Like
Right.
That's the challenge for that is how to get it specific enough so that you know that it's only affecting the things you're thinking about and not affecting things you're not paying attention to.
I don't know. I haven't figured that one out yet.
That's what components does, right, Jen?
Like the web components? What do you mean?
I think what's the there's an acronym for how you organize CSS, right?
Yeah, we use the word components for that in the basis theme. So there's like a folder called in the basis theme, there's a folder called components, and then each section is broken out into a different one. I think we do that in the Borg themes too, but it's sort of a personal preference convention than a internet wide.
Okay.
Isn't there's an acronym there, like
Snacks.
Right? That's it.
Yeah. That's a different personal preference system, but that's more of a standard. Scalable and modular architecture for CSS.
Right.
I think that would still not having a structure for your CSS would still not save you from your base theme changing its CSS and breaking your site, though.
I mean, it can't be guaranteed. Like, depending on what you've done before, it can't be guaranteed to
right
to handle all those unbounded possibilities.
Yeah, CSS is hard just in its nature, just the way that like, you know, you can style something and you can style it again and you can style it again. And like the most recent style wins, but all of the previous styles are still included. And so you can override parts or not parts of it, depending on how you choose. And so anytime you're including anything from a source that's not yours, you run the risk of if that source changes, it's going to break what you've done, whether it's your overrides or some things you haven't overridden, just because it's all included all the time. And it's just a matter of like which things on the page happen to win or in which order they're included. It's a very complicated hierarchy because it's not always like the file that's added last that wins. It's the most specific selector. And so if you had a more specific selected added first, that'll still win over yours that might have been added last. So yeah, it's hard to change things without breaking things. We're running into core right now too, where like we want to introduce 6 CSS improvements and we're really worried about how we can do that without breaking existing sites. And sometimes those come from modules, sometimes they come from base themes, and sometimes they come from, you know, contributed themes. And yeah, trying to find a way to not, there's no guaranteed way to not break anything except for not changing anything.
Right.
I wonder if there's ways to avoid some of those problems. I mean, there's things about the way websites are made. I've been doing it for 20 years, and there's, you know, the ways I did when I was first starting, that seemed, you know, where I wasn't trying to do it right, where I was just trying to like, let's see what happens, throw stuff at the wall, let's watch what changes. I've been surprised there actually don't seem to be that more sophisticated ways to do it. For example, I'm kind of astonished at how everybody on the web works day after day in an environment that looks like the final website, like actually going into like what the end users see in order to do it. Like it seems like it should be more open up than that you should spend your time in like a visual environment that's greatly simplified and to let you just focus on the stuff that you're changing. And then when it's time to use the rest of the site, do it. One of the things that I do practically when I go over some project is I turn off the theme. I change the theme from like the custom theme to you know, Bartik or, you know, that kind of thing. And I'm like, does it work? and if it works, like, oh good, you know, people put it together according to the rules, and that's fine. If it completely blows up, you're like, oh great, you know, it was hacked together and it's going to be very brittle and then hard to make any changes. So so the overall case for us, you know, system designers is how do you make it so that it doesn't tend to get brittle? How do you get it so that it tends to follow the rules when possible? Yeah,
I think a little bit what we're fighting here is just like, this is how the web works, is that people made a decision a long time ago that, you know, much of this stuff was going to be backwards compatible. And so we're still dealing with the way things worked 10 years ago. It's just that's, you know, a decision that we made in terms of how things are working. And I think that, you know, a lot of us have our own personal systems of organization that might be like, oh, you know, the first time I built a website, it was terrible. And so I did better the second time. And now I'm on the 200th time and I'm definitely much better than I was originally, but I've developed all my own systems in order to do that. And I think that everybody comes up with their own set of systems. And so you have all these people who are like publishing about their systems and whatever, but at the end of the day, we're all still using the same base system that's been around for like 10 years. And in order to make sure that that works across lots of browsers, you've got to see everything all at the same time, because if you're only looking at one piece of it, you're going to miss 90% of the problems. So I think we're sort of like stuck in the limitations of the world that we're operating in, which has gotten vastly more complicated, but it still uses the underlying base concepts that we established a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah. Although we keep making it worse.
And better, making it better and worse.
You know, I've been building stuff with Composer and Vagrant and things like that recently, and you know, that's like, oh my god, you know, to change a comma, there's a 20-minute compile cycle.
Right. It's funny. One of the things I really liked about PHP when I first started learning to program was just I could edit a file and reload the page immediately and see the change in my code. And now we've built compilation into PHP.
Oh yeah. I mean, the glorious thing about the web, you know, I remember the first time firing up Mosaic. I mean, that's how old I am. And going to view source. I'm like, are you kidding me? The source code's here. I can actually just copy that and change it and muck with it. And I mean, that still largely exists, except you know, everybody thinks they're cool, makes it not exist. You have got, you know, like Css, for example, right? Where you don't have the source code anymore. It's back in the ivory tower, and you just have to get the artifacts that make their way to you. This is I've hijacked into the philosophy grousing meeting. let me actually, as long as I've like opened up the intros here, let me kind of throw out an elephant in the woods that I think of when I work with all the stuff from sort of the naive user's perspective. Is it's kind of like Joseph, when I was looking for how to turn on the block styles features, right? So I mean, in general, when you go into our interface, you know, lots of pieces that we inherited from Drupal. Even if you've like made very few changes, like you could describe to somebody the 10 things that I've made on the site. Unless you know where those 10 things are, you see like thousands and thousands of options. You see all these unchosen things that you know.
Where you've just left them as the defaults.
They're just the defaults, but yet they're there. I mean, you can't tell they're the defaults. They're still there. So I mean, I'm always dreaming of a way to be like, only show me the things that have changed. Like, if it's a default, hide it, or at least, you know, mark it as being unchanged, so we can find out like what are the things we're working with. Yeah, you see
so
that
like some way to do a diff against the original installed state.
Yeah, totally, exactly. I mean, think about what you see when you see a commit in Git, right? You know,
right. You don't see all the million and a half
thousands of files. You see the one line that changed.
Right.
You see the part you care about, and you do those things 100 stuff that you know to gloss over. You know, what do they call it? Like the reference codes.
Right. The stuff that's there to tell you where the change happened.
Yeah. Okay. So we have 5 minutes left for a meeting. What's our actual next steps? What should I try to do? Give me a job, Jen. What should I try to do?
I don't know.
I know.
What do you want to do?
I saw some stuff actually in the in the agenda about user testing? Where was that a thing? You're talking about incentivizing user testing.
So
Way down the bottom.
Tim a while ago had created some outlines of quick user tests that he was doing with some people in sort of a larger open source software community rather than specific backdrop. At they have he had an open source event he was doing a while ago, pre-pandemic. And so he was trying to figure out how to get people to do the user tests, like just random people to come and test backdrop and let us know how it went. And so he thought we could do something where it's like, oh, do you want this cool dragon t-shirt? Spend 20 minutes on this task to video record yourself. And then when you're done, we'll send you a t-shirt sort of thing. And we might be able to get people to do it on the web without needing to be there in person, badgering them to give us 20 minutes of time.
Okay, but nothing like immediately present and happening with that.
I don't think we have anything actively underway.
Okay.
Let's see. Anything else design or user experience related? I guess I could point out that on our core issue queue, if you're interested in looking at issues specific related to user experience, there's little square brackets in the title that says UX. And in those UX square brackets, you'll find all of the issues focused on user experience. And if you are particularly passionate about design stuff too, there is an audience design label. So if you're a designer and you want to know how you can help, we have a couple of issues that say, oh, we should really ask a designer how to do that. So those are labeled out too.
Yeah, do we have any designers in the community? I mean, it seems like
we have a handful. We definitely have a lot more developers, hence needing to ask designers for help all the time. Not as many of them around in the issue queue anyway. But yeah, I know we've got a couple of people we've been poking in the past for help on design issues.
I ran into Darius a couple of days ago, yesterday actually, on LinkedIn. He's at Microsoft now. So
yeah, he worked for a little company called Bonsai that does artificial intelligence stuff in Berkeley, and then Microsoft bought them. And shortly after Microsoft bought them, Microsoft released their Stickies app that uses the backdrop logo. And he was like, I can't believe that my company stole my logo. Pretty funny.
Yeah. Did Darius design that?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. All right, should we call it?
I think so. Let's wrap it up. And weekly dev meeting starts in 1 minute. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.